So Mattie, Greg, and Danielle, you all started attending and volunteering at Story Heights back in college, and now you all are parents of your own. You've been through so many life stages with this church. You've volunteered through so many stages of this church. What has that journey been like when you think about where Story Heights was when you started when you were in college and where the church is now?
So how can I even answer that? Like, so much has grown and changed. We've grown and changed so much. We used to serve in kids' church. I still serve in kids' church.
Yeah.
Used to.
But we used to
Together,
serve in kids'
yeah.
church, and now like our kids are in kids' church. It's kind of wild.
What's that like?
It's like kind of surreal to see my own child be in a classroom that I used to teach and that I like helped, or like we have helped develop and create, and
A classroom that didn't exist.
yes, and like
the preschool classroom didn't exist.
that
when
wasn't
we
a
first
thing. That
started.
wasn't a thing.
We
It was
had
just like we had
a
this
kids class.
kids.
And now to see it thriving, to see where it is now, how does that make you feel?
Oh man, when we first moved into the new kids space that we have now, I like was so emotional and I cried because it was just like for so long we were just meeting in corners or back rooms, and now we have this like wonderful space that was dedicated to kids, and it was for them and for just like their relationships with Jesus, and created for them to be able to flourish in that. And it was just like crazy to see how that has always been the heart of Story Heights, is to have that. And, you know, over the years we did our best with what we had.
God is moving in this church, just in the, we're bursting at the seams, but God is still moving and bringing people here.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're bursting at the seams, and what that means is like, the one, there's an opportunity to meet new people and make new friends. The sharing of life together, like this is literally what Jesus wanted when he came.
Yeah.
So
He came
true.
into these small rooms, right, with like 30 people. He was in, and then he's preaching to a crowd of 3,000 5 days later. Like, he obviously cares about that intimate and that expansion and what that means, and that's.
You've grown as the church has grown.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what I'm
exactly.
thinking. Like, literally, it's matured
Yeah.
with our maturity as well.
Right.
That leads me to my next question, because this wasn't easy. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
Greg, what kept you going?
I honestly, I really don't know. I think it was the bond, to
Yeah.
be honest, like having like the friends in the community, because really throughout my life, what has kept me going was being around people that love Jesus.
Some of the hindsight that we have to be able to like look back and see is we know that God will meet people at every stage of this church and
for sure.
change their lives. When you see the prospect of people coming into a building to encounter God, that's always going to be exciting. Like, that is the whole mission of our lives. It's the thing that we're supposed to care about the most, is God meeting his people. And so when you think about the prospect of, 50,000 people, like you just said, having the opportunity to meet God in any way, that's over the top exciting.
I want them to hear from you all as people who helped plant this church with Tyler, with Crystal, and their families. Why would you encourage people at Story Heights to dig deep and to give to this campaign?
Something I've been thinking about is like when God calls us to give, he's calling us to have he's giving us that opportunity to be obedient, and obedience is always worth it.
The original vision of the church, we had this thing called Vision26, and it was that we would have an expression of Story Heights Church in all 26 neighborhoods of Boston, including Brookline, Newton, and Cambridge. And, I remember hearing that and thinking that I never heard a church with that model before. Story Heights Church, from its get-go, was never about building a church. It was about being a blessing to a city. And it felt so biblical, to hear that, because, this idea that we need a building so that we can have a strong foundation in the city to be a blessing to the city.
14 years ago, the idea of Vision26, the idea of having a community expression of Story Heights Church in all 23 neighborhoods of Boston, including Newton, Cambridge, and Brookline, seemed so big, so bold, and so unlikely. Given time, experience, and exposure to ministry in the Boston area, we surrendered that vision to the Lord, committing to become a Jesus-proclaiming, Bible-preaching, Holy Spirit-filled church in this region, wherever God needed us to be. When this property in Framingham becomes the new home of Story Heights Church, we will be poised in strength to see clearly what may have fallen out of focus. And it all begins again on Easter 2026.